with the previous coordinators that had been in place. So we were successful. We found out right when we returned from break, and that was super exciting for everyone to hear. And it's really the culminating event to receive that authorization letter from the IB organization for all the teachers in grades 6 through 10 who have spent the last 3 years rewriting their curriculum. And I'm sure you're thinking, oh, that's probably a lot of work. And yes, it was, but the curriculum is deeper now. There is more depth added to the SLL content that the state asks us to teach, so that the students receive a deeper understanding of what it is they are learning, so then they can apply that outside the classroom and from one classroom to the other. And so I think that that is the heart of what the middle years program is all about. All of the other things that have been mentioned by the PYP coordinators also are a part of the middle years program: service, the learner profile attributes. There's a huge emphasis on language learning. I'm sure you're all aware of that, and the international mindedness, but really that collaboration, student-centered piece where we're developing a conceptual-based curriculum for our students to experience. We do have some next steps. We've achieved our kind of our big thing that we wanted to get this year, but there are some next steps, because when you are working on becoming an IB World School, you have to do about a third of the things they want you to do up front, and then you continue to build an action plan and work on the additional things. So if you have not had the chance to see our verification visit report yet, I'm sure that Ms. High will share that with you all. But it did have some lovely commendations about the school district, as well as a few recommendations for things for us to continue to work on. So a couple of those things, we've got some continued professional learning to take place at the middle school and the high school around some very specific topics. We are going to kick off the MYP Personal Project, which is a culminating project for our students in grade 10. We're going to start it this fall, or this spring, excuse me, with our grade 9 students. And Gabriel, who I see here today, I just met with him about a week ago. He actually completed a personal project at his previous school and is going to share his project with all of our current freshmen coming up here pretty soon. And so very excited about that. Interdisciplinary learning, we've got some teachers that have begun working on that, but we've got a little bit more work to do in that area. Most recently, I can think we have a team of 7th grade individuals and societies or social studies teachers and language and literature teachers that are working on building a new interdisciplinary unit, and they are so excited about it. They asked if they could skip PD in February to stay back and work on it, and so I told them we would talk later. And then we're going to continue to build upon the service learning framework that has been put in place at both of the schools as well, so that those frameworks can reach all students and not just students that are participating in Flex or in clubs. I included just on the next slide just two really things that have been really exciting for me since I've been here. We had a CERT training in September of 2016, and you can see we have 4 of our teachers from the middle school and the high school, and they are building something. And so when we are planning our professional learning, which is part of my role, we are modeling the MYP pedagogy for the teachers that we then want them to take back into their classroom. So it's not set and get, which is the kind of the boring phrase for PD. We are actually trying to get them involved in hands-on learning opportunities. We do it in-house, and sometimes we send them out. But Mr. Coast and I have been working really hard this year to provide those hands-on learning opportunities. The other thing just came out today, and I think I saw Mr. Kelly come in. Mr. Kelly is one of the newspaper advisors for MEH, and this just came out, I guess, on Friday, is an article, and I got interviewed by a student a couple weeks ago for this newspaper. I didn't even really know what the article was about. She just asked me about some MYP things, and there's a link there to the full article so that you can see it. But it brought tears to my eyes this morning as I read it, and I let Mr. Kelly know, and Ms. Swain, who was the other advisor, let them know that that happened, because the student, this 8th grade student, explained the middle years program in such a clear way for other students in the school to understand it. I hope you'll take the time to read it, because she did a much better job than I would be able to do to explain it to 12, 13, and 14-year-olds. So I hope you have the opportunity to read that later.
Hi everybody, I'm Dan Coast. I started with IB work in 1997 as a biology teacher. IB biology in Fairfax County. Now you got to know, at that time I had taught in Charles County, Maryland for 15 years, and I was the very best biology teacher that ever existed in my head. And when I came over and got involved with IB, I was humbled, because I realized how much professional growth was still awaiting me. I loved the program so much. I taught it for 7 years, and then the school asked me to become the IB Diploma Program coordinator. I believe in this program wholeheartedly, not only to help kids grow and become better learners, but staff as well. And I'm a living example. I really grew tremendously under the requirements of the IB program for me to run a classroom, to assess students, and provide meaningful learning opportunities. I grew tremendously. And I've seen that ever since as an IB Diploma Program coordinator. I've been able to work with teachers in all disciplines. And I see it all the time. This is a program that helps kids and it helps teachers grow to be better. As an IB Diploma Program coordinator, we always bring back our graduates. And our graduates are the best testimony that you could ever have. I've been to IB trainings, I've been to IB networking, I've been to IB conferences, I've read the IB literature. So in some ways, I'm a little bit brainwashed with how powerful IB can be. But the real proof of the pudding is what the kids come back and tell us about how IB prepared them for college success. We talk about the IB learner profile. I'll tell you, it's real, it's living, it's how teachers must drive their instruction and how IB assesses their students, and therefore how teachers must assess. I love the IB learner profile, and the example I just gave to a group of sophomores today. If you were, for example, to write an IB history, paper 2, there's 26 essays, and you're expected as a student to address 2 of them. So you don't have to know everything in 20th century world topics, but you certainly want to be well versed, at least with 2, because you're going to have to write a thesis statement and support it with a lot of opinions, facts, and you can even ask questions. In the IB learner profile, you're not asked just to be knowledgeable about the topic you've selected, though you need to be knowledgeable to write about it. But you also, in the course of writing that answer, you have to show balance, reflection. You have to be an inquirer. Example: suppose you get a prompt that says, "How did Hitler rise to power in Germany in the 1930s?" Well, now you decide to write about that. Your thesis is what it is, and you develop it with some nice facts and figures from that time period. But you're going to have to also be very balanced in your approach. You're going to have to say what was Russia thinking, what was the Brits, the Americans, the French, as well as what was happening inside of Germany at that time. You have to be reflective on how the different practices that occurred after World War I led to the rise of the Third Reich in Germany in the 1930s, where a man like Hitler could even come to power. You can be an inquirer when you write your answer. What would happen if after World War I the powers did this and changed the economy of Germany as it had a better chance to grow? How would that influence Hitler's ability to rise to power? You can ask a question in your answer. So when you saw the learner profile earlier, I want you to know it's very real. It drives the way we teach, and it drives the way the kids learn, and it drives the way we have to assess kids. You guys are sitting on a gold mine in this city. I can tell you, you're K through 12. Just today, I had a parent from Singapore approach me via email. We're coming to your area. We've heard wonderful things about your IB program. How can we make this transition work for our daughter? Another student today from Denmark contacted me via email saying, my family's moving there after my first year of IB in Denmark, and we want to come to your school. What's the transition look like with coursework? These are just 2 examples from today. This is a weekly event for me where I get contact from families overseas looking to move to Falls Church City. You guys rank in the top 1% on the Newsweek Challenge Index developed by Jay Matthews. It's in large part because, it's all because of the number of IB exams and a little bit of the AP exams that we give. The challenge rankings based on the fact that so many of our students are challenging themselves with the external examinations relative to the size of our graduating class. We're in the top 1% of schools nationally based on that IB program that Lou, you so wonderfully had the insight to bring in 1981 as I was just finishing college. So good. So Amy is our director of counseling, and she wrote me a quote. I've only been here in this city doing IB since September 1st. I finally got on board here. But she's been here a while, and the experiences I just shared with you about families wanting to come here, she can give you testimony after testimony after testimony of families that have moved to this district I know there's a budget hearing. If you're looking at the cost of certain programs, I tell you IB money is money well spent. You have a lot of high-quality families and students looking to move to this school district because of the IB program. It's powerful. You have a gem here. I hope you continue to support it. I'm passionate about it, and I'm passionate about it because my students who've gone through my programs that I've had the ability to run have come back and told me as much.
I just want to mention just briefly, I know we're running over in time, is that all of our coordinators wear many hats. They're not just coordinators. We have assistant principals as coordinators. Our coordinators, like Dan is also the GT specialist at the high school, and he runs the AP coordination for all the assessments. The MYP and DP are both counselors. They counsel students on which courses to take, colleges to go to. So they wear many, many hats. So we have to look at that piece of it as well with what's on their plate to do every day to help our kids. So quick question, where do we go from here? Some people say, well, now you're IB K-12, it's over. We don't have to, we're done, okay. No, it's never done, okay. So basically we need to continue to strive for that excellence. And by doing that, we have to have continual reflection about our teaching, our learning practices, and then we have to do our revision. It's that cycle that keeps on looping and looping. And once we fall out of that cycle, we stagnate and we don't strive for excellence anymore. So it's an ongoing process, and then every 5 years, we are reevaluated by the IB. They come and they check on our program to make sure that we are following best practices, make sure we're doing what we should be doing, and then they give us recommendation and good feedback so that we can grow as professionals. And they'll tell us, like, you know, you guys are doing really, really great here, but you really need to work on this, and this will be better for you, for your kids, and for your teachers to grow. So it's that continual practice that we never want to give up. I want to share this with you. On the board docs are the SCCPS staff comments. There is a huge list of comments from our IB World educators in the division, all the way from kindergarten up to 12th grade. They are sharing how they feel this transition, like for MYP being only 3 years, or PYP or DP, how it's impacted their pedagogy and their teaching, and how they've seen that impact with their students. So I encourage you, I know it's a lot of reading, maybe over a period of days, but please try to go through and read those comments. They're really worth reading. I was like floored by some of the things I read, because I remember 3 years ago, especially with the MYP when we started this process, and you know how it is with change. Change is never easy, so the look on their faces when we told them we were going here, it was priceless. So do you want to mention this a little bit?
Sure. So I just took the staff comments and put them into a word cloud. And the way that the software works is that the words that are repeated over and over get bigger and bigger as it gets input into the cloud. So you can see that the staff talked a lot about students and learning, and global are kind of and connections are our biggest words. And I just thought it was really telling that students was the largest word, and it appeared in the center when I copied and pasted all of the comments into the software, because all three IB programs are truly a student-centered approach to teaching and learning. And so they are the heart and soul of the IB.
Thank you. All right, and then here are just some other reference items. So if you really want to learn more about the programs and what they mean, and some other information, like I know there's a question about inclusion, you know, and making sure that all kids are getting what they need out of the program. I put that on there as well. So if you want to educate yourselves, and the public wants to educate themselves more about the International Baccalaureate and that it's not just a logo, then there's a whole lot of resources there. This QR code, anybody that wants the presentation right now doesn't want to search for it on the IB docs, if you do that, you can get the presentation. And that's it in a nutshell. We're done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank each of you very much for all that you've done to get us to this point, and will continue to be doing over the days, weeks, and months to come. Are there any questions? Mr. Nkuma?
Mrs. Seabridge, could you share that with us the old-fashioned way?
Yes.
Not the war.
It's okay. We are differentiating. It's also in board docs. Yes, it's there.
Okay.
It's all good.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to note that the World Economic Forum is going on in Davos, Switzerland right now, and the little pony that powers my computer is getting tired. But there was a panel selection, and there was a panel today on the the future of work. And I don't believe that education is all about work, because I think we have to build good citizens as well. And there was an interesting list of projected top 10 skills in 2020. It's very similar in 2015, but if you look at what the consensus is about what's really important, it's not reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordinating with others, emotional intelligence, judgment and decision making, service orientation, negotiation, and cognitive flexibility. All those things are the hallmark of what IB offers. And so I think we are very fortunate to have Mr. Olam's foresight, and I think seeing some very coincidental thing like this tells me that we really are on the right track.
Definitely, no doubt.
Other questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Ms. Ward?
Just talking. I just want to thank you all for all of your hard work. And I know, as a teacher myself, I know that we all work beyond our contract hours, but I know as IB specialists, you are totally putting in a lot of hours, and certainly you're not doing it for the money, you're doing it for the love of the program, and you believe in it, and that's very clear. And I really appreciate you even taking the time this evening to come out here and make your presentations. Thank you so much.
For that.
Anyone else?
Just briefly,
Mr. Bringer.
I wanted to offer my thanks, not just to the coordinators, but to the staffs of all the schools and everyone who had a role in this. I look behind the row of IB coordinators and PYP coordinators, and I see Mr. Sharp, a member of the City Council and the school board, led these many years. And I think this is an outcome of a commitment of literally 35 years of effort. And I think it is a huge accomplishment. I think more people had a role in this than you could possibly describe. But my kids, have been lifers in Falls Church City. They started at Mount Daniel before it was actually a PYP school, and went up and watched the transitions to PYP at Mount Daniel, Thomas Jefferson, and then Mary Ellen Henderson. And it's been a great thing for them. I just can't offer enough thanks for the work that you've all put into this, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
1981.
So what we're going to do is for each of the schools, we're going to give recognition for each of you, and I'll read this briefly. Congratulations, Exceptional Performance Award presented to, and I'm going to read each of the school, Mount Daniel Elementary School IB World Educator, Thomas Jefferson Elementary School IB World Educator, Mary Ellen Henderson Middle School IB World Educator, and George Mason High School World Educator for outstanding dedication and contributions towards Falls Church City Public Schools becoming a K-12 International Baccalaureate World School Division. And thank you all very much for all that, and I'll come down and present them to you.
Thank you so much.
You could do one of those things yourself, too. I'll present to you tomorrow, okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We're going to move on and move to public comment. In accordance with School Board Bylaw 2.30, the time for each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Additional written statements may be submitted to the clerk for dissemination to the board, to board members, and for the record. As right now, we just have one comment. Oh, excuse me. Two. The first one is from, first speaker will be Amanda Blanchard. Welcome, Ms. Blanchard.
Hello.
You can just pull up a chair.
It didn't hurt green.
Grab a chair.
Oh.
Just to make it
I
even more
can if
complicated.
that makes it easier for the lovely mics. Good evening. Amanda Blanchard. I am here representing the Falls Church City Education Association this evening. Just sharing some thoughts. Thank you, Dr. Schiller, for coming and speaking to all of our buildings. I was not at all of them, but I was at the middle and high school. And I can share with you, I think the biggest takeaway is just, I think staff are a little disappointed, not at the presentation and not from the information, but that salary staff employment improvements basically were given the back seat. And that's a little scary for them. They feel as if it's not, their options were given, but it wasn't necessarily presented as if it's going forward, that it's still a potential that a step would not happen or salary improvements would not happen. And I think that's scary for them in terms of our commitment to taking care of our staff. We know that education is not a business, but I saw something the other day that really kind of hit home. You don't have to worry about customer service if you take care of your staff, because if your staff feel happy, they feel secure, they feel well taken care of, they will take care of your customers. And our customers are students, everyday students, all the time students, at night students, on weekends students. And I think that they are feeling more and more as if we are not potentially keeping up if we don't afford them a step this coming season and include that as a priority on the many, many items that you will discuss in the next month and a half to 2 months. So that being said, as we move forward, do keep that in mind, and I will be here advocating for them and with them to make sure that that is a priority moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Farrell Kelly.
Hello. Hi. I won't take much of your time. Ms. Lane actually kind of stole my thunder. I'm here to keep an eye on and find out about the budget process. But I more wanted to just call everybody's attention to the new school newspaper at Mary Ellen Henderson, of which we are all very, very proud. It's pretty much an entirely student-driven effort. 2 8th graders came to me about a month and a half ago and asked, we have a literary magazine, why don't we have a newspaper? And my response was, because nobody's ever asked me about that question before. So when do you want to start? And they have taken the reins. It's entirely extracurricular. We don't have an encore block for it, but if you take the chance to take a look at it, it's available on the front page of the MEH website and was out in the morning announcements this morning. I think you'll find that it's pretty impressive. And what's more, it's sort of appropriate that it came out this week because it, I think, perfectly aligns with, the IB philosophy. The students chose the articles that they wanted to research. They did the research, and you can't get more sort of inquiry-based than that. So that's all. I hope you'll take the chance to take a look at it. We're going to be coming out with new editions monthly, and we're very excited to see where they go. Ms. Swain and I have had nothing but pleasant times. It's been incredibly stress-free for an opening, in part. Well, not just in part, but totally because of the kids' utter dedication. And now that this first issue is out, in addition to the 11 folks who contributed to the original, to this edition, we've had, just scads of kids coming and saying, what can I do? I want to do one too. I want to do an article as well. So I'm afraid it's going to turn into quite a thick news magazine before it's all through. But anyway, please take a look, and we would love to hear your feedback as well. It's something I think the students are tremendously proud of, and we're very proud of them for their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we will move on into the work session, and the first topic tonight will be following up on a great presentation talking about our IB program. We'll be talking about the budgetary impacts of the program. And I will turn over to Dr. Schiller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We thought it appropriate that there's always been questions since I've been here, and you've been hearing for a long, how much does the IB program cost us? So I charged staff not too long ago, like maybe 24 hours ago.
Not even.
Not even, okay. That's why Lisa is in here. She's with her mom. But
Just saying.
Ms. Seabridge and Hunter and I have been working through this until just about bell time here. And what we've been trying to do is really give an honest appraisal of where are the costs as associated. Questions have come up to me as recently as today from people who are associated with the district but not necessarily or not staff members. So here is a very quick overview of our costs as you would appropriate. And Jeannie, perhaps you can help me work through this. But ladies and gentlemen, as you know, all school districts look for a way to provide professional development in a variety of different areas to their staff. Whether it be training in mandated areas, whether it be for special education, whether it be for program, curriculum, pedagogy. We see that we are spending for our entire division $42,850 in professional development, which is a woeful number. I will tell you that. That does not simply limit itself to what we do in IB. If you did not have an IB program, I would venture to say there would be no change in that cost because you would have to substitute some form of professional development. Jean, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well. It's like you can't really count that, in my opinion, as an IB cost because even if we didn't have IB, we would have to spend that, and we really should be spending more to give the teachers, the PD that they really do need. We've been doing a whole lot of Band-Aid approach on PD, by trying to give them things, but we're a small division. We don't have the resources the bigger division has, so sometimes we really do have to send our teachers out to get real good quality PD. We don't have a choice, or we have to pay a bigger dollar to bring people in to provide that PD. So something definitely you want to think about. It's not IB.
It does cost an annual membership fee per school. And Jeannie has identified here that our total program costs are a shade under $37,000. Now, going through the evaluation program, the reevaluation program, obviously has a cost impact. The other alternative was you'll be a member of the Southern Associations of Colleges and Schools. And going through a SACS accreditation and visits, as many of you have experienced or you know about, that's estimated at $6,000 a year. Yes, it does cost more for the IB program, but trust me, having been affiliated with all the and the head of these kinds of assessment divisions in the Midwest and in the Middle States, that the type of rigor and the type of value that you get going through your IB program evaluation is much more valuable, and the return on investment is much more significant.
I just want to add, we did SACS-CASI for a while, and we found it was always, all the work was on us, and we got nothing out of it. And it just cost us a whole lot of money. And I know I was talking to Mr. Kelly about that earlier, and he's like, yeah, I remember that. So at least now we're getting like some kind of feedback, we're getting guidance, we're getting a framework, and we are, every 5 years, they come back and they tell us, what can we do to improve? How can we sustain that cycle? And before we weren't getting that, and I know you know as well as I do, there was a big evaluation we did last year on the ESOL program. The expense of just that one evaluation was humongous. So if you think of that compared to what we're paying for these fees, it's just a drop in a bucket. And we're getting much more out of this than we did even from that evaluation.
You met our staff just a few moments ago, and one of the things that we debated this afternoon is how to present this. I learned something. I did not realize that at George Mason and at the middle school that your IB coordinator wears many hats. So to say that you have a full-time IB coordinator, I think is a misstatement. And I would proffer to you that the other responsibilities that include the coordination of your AP program, the gifted and talented program, the governor's school, and it goes on here. You can see, and so I would submit to you that if you did not have the IB program, you would still need at least a half-time person who's going to coordinate all these other programs. So I would argue that you really do not have two full-time IB coordinators. At best, I would call 1/2, a 0.5. Similarly, you have an assistant principal in 2 schools. You work out the fraction. Some of you are in those schools. I think you would probably see that you're working at well over a 1, given all their diverse responsibilities. And our standard staff costs for that number we have here is what we generally would ascribe to with the benefits and the cost for the salary for a half. And the exams. Yes, this school board, fortunately, pays for the exams for the IB, and that runs $114,000 a year. So yes, that's an additional cost. So I would support and say to you that from what we've looked at and scoured through the budget, Hunter, did we leave anything out that you know of?
No, we didn't. And actually, the total staff cost, the 166, represents a 1.5 FTE. So really, it would be
less than that. I'm sorry.
Than that,
Again, I pressed these people to put this together. I apologize for that oversight.
And the only other thing that I would add in terms of working with Jeannie and other staff, in terms of the IB exam expenses, again, if we didn't do IP exams, we'd be paying for a greater number of AP exams or some other sort of exam where we have to pay for that because we require it of the students.
And so it's required by law, just so everybody understands.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Hunter, can I just ask you a question
Surely.
about this total cost? So essentially that total cost, we really should deduct from that the additional AP exam expense as well as the SACS expense, or has that already been taken out?
Well, and I'll let Jeannie help chime in here because I think part of the concept in putting the chart together is to say, okay, here's IB, and here's the cost that we can assign to it and the staff. If we didn't do this, however, what would need to be in its place?
And we would.
So it would include, professional development. We would have to do some sort of professional development.
So then, I guess, Jeannie, I should be asking you, then this $359,000 is actually, in effect, lower when we consider what we would have to do in lieu of the IB?
Yeah, if we ended up getting rid of the DP program and not having those assessments, the increase in other assessments would go up probably 80
Exactly.
and so on. So you're going to have it factor out, in that way. Plus, we need those roles for the coordinators to fulfill. Even if without an IB program, we need to do PD, and we need to have some kind of accountability with accreditation, whether it's IB accreditation or it's SACS accreditation. We need some kind of accreditation so that we can keep.
So it sounds like that 359 would be a lot lower, just, I mean, the difference.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the difference. How much more are we paying for IB versus, well, what we would be doing otherwise?